You know that invisible pressure so many women carry? The mental load, the emotional labor, the constant juggling of work, home, health, appearance, partnership, and family. Whether you have kids or not, the load is real for most of us. And for a lot of women, this also never turns off. We were told as millennial women that you can have it all, but somehow that became also you should be it all. So no wonder so many of us are quietly burning out. So today we're diving into why so many women feel like something is wrong with them, how mental load and emotional labor drain your joy and energy, why more choice leads to way more pressure, and how you finally step out of this cycle and breathe again. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. So this podcast episode today is very special to me because this is a topic that I seriously ponder on a lot of times. It is definitely not something that just crossed my mind and I'm like, oh, let's do an episode about. It's actually something when I'm working with clients, also seeing it in my own life, and then for some women in my own family and among like friends and acquaintances, I see a red thread through women becoming more and more resentful or brewing in resentment at times, not all the time, but at times, juggling too much and kind of constantly running on fumes. And I don't know how it is in your life, whether you have already kids or you don't have kids, but have you ever been in a situation where you come home from work or you work from home, doesn't matter, and then you see, the laundry needs to be done. Maybe you want to cook something healthy, right? There's pressure to be healthy, to eat very nutritious food, to go and work out, to stay slim and fit, and then get enough sleep. Then have time for your self-care, reading maybe a book, getting off doom scrolling. And while you might have a partner with whom you share the household chores, which I to some extent do, I still see so much more pressure on me, and that could be definitely the expectations and how I was raised, because I was raised to keep the house always very clean, even if you don't expect anyone over. And this is just a lot to juggle. And I work full time. I have a business on the side because that is what, where I feel there's my purpose involved and I feel it's meaningful work. And then I have to take care of dogs. And we don't have kids, to be honest. So that's obviously, something that if you have kids, you might think like, oh my God, once you have kids, it's a complete different chapter. And I totally get it. But even without the kids, there is a lot of pressure to keep everything together, to keep myself together, to stay a sexy wife, And there's a lot involved. And I just see like clients, social media, friends, family, jobs, the women brain never really turns off. And I don't know, have you ever like lay awake in bed at night when your partner, your significant other already fell asleep and it's a very deep, amazing sleep, and you lay awake and you feel like, I have to think about this, and next week is this, and then maybe it's something kids related, maybe you have pets, or maybe it's something career related, or maybe someone in your family is sick and you worry about them. There is constantly something going on in a woman's brain. And it's not that every woman is exhausted, overwhelmed, or questioning herself. I'm just making this a bit more general, but I feel that a lot of women are exhausted because with everything like our job, household, kids or pets, or just, maybe you are also having to deal with, hopefully not, with a health scare, some health concerns. That is all so much like in our lives, And yet somehow, still society tells us you have it all. You women can have it all. And I also notice what a lot of women don't know. And I am I could preach from morning till night that women need more sleep. Because we have so much on our plate, we have to sleep more. We need more sleep than men. But our brains are also overworking. They are doing overtime. It's all about the planning, the worrying, the remembering everything for everyone, and then processing also all this often emotional, like it's often invisible emotional labor. And there are multiple studies that show women spend 2 to 3 hours per day, like 2 to 3 hours, more hours per day, that's what I wanted to say, than men on unpaid work at home. And that is what I call emotional labor. That is this managing everyone's needs, expectations, and often also the feelings, because maybe you don't know that, or maybe you do this more unconsciously. Often we do manage other people's feelings, which we shouldn't do, but often we do that. Why? Because women are conditioned to make sure everyone is great and we are being good girls. And that is all such a relentless, ongoing, this mental load. It's like carrying a second job inside of your own head and carrying that from your work, from your actual day job, into your household. So here's the question that's been brewing in my mind. And I have been thinking about this actually for quite some time now. And maybe you thought about it too, or maybe you got a sense that women have so much opportunity nowadays. And then you might also notice a lot of women are getting health conditions, like something is worsening. They might have an autoimmune disease popping up, or just like something where they are constantly sick. I know a lot of women actually who get all sorts of things throughout the seasons. And I know we sometimes catch things from the children or from coworkers or from our partners, but there are women I know that are constantly sick. Constantly. And that is, in my mind, not at all normal. Because that also means when a woman is constantly doing things, like you are running on fumes, you are constantly doing everything that you expect yourself, and also these expectations of others, you're constantly doing things and not getting to rest as much. And then the night sleep is not as deep or as long. Then obviously what happens is you are in survival. You're not thriving anymore. And it's not about like being constantly in peace and everything is working so like easy. Everything is easeful. That's not what I mean. Because obviously there's healthy stress. There's healthy, I call it healthy pressure that I put on myself so that I'm getting my ass moving. But then I also have time, at least in the evening or in the morning, to just slow down, or just to, before I start working, I'm just taking time for myself and filling my own cup. Or in the evening where I'm really calming down from work and slowing things down and not catching myself so often on doom scrolling and just checking out. And so what I'm trying to say here is maybe this is something that you have noticed and feel like this is kind of a trap. You don't really get out of it because there is always something that's going on in your life. And so the question that was brewing in my mind is like, are we women broken? And I don't literally mean that in the literal sense. But somehow, somewhere along the line, I feel we swung too far on the spectrum from oppression and no choice to all the choice and all the pressure. And it's all this, I want to do it all. I want to be it all. And I want to prove myself. And often I see women being immensely successful, be it in their corporate job, in their business, or just, at home. And I say just at home as if it was, just at home. what I meant to say is, and at home with kids and having a great relationship and they are really good taken care of. But then to what cost? And the cost that I saw women paying, be it clients, be it friends, families, and also myself, is burnout, exhaustion, guilt, and feeling like nothing is ever enough, no matter what you put in. And for me, gosh, I have been trying it all. The career babe, the entrepreneurial boss babe. I have done it all. I climbed my career. I have built a business. While I was working full-time job, while I was leading a huge team in my corporate job, I studied. I did an MBA on top of all my master titles just to prove, hey, I'm good. I can do this all. And, also building up finances and rejecting getting kids early because I'm like, no, it's about me proving like I have all these opportunities and I all want to take it. Gosh. And you know what? I don't have kids. I want to have kids, but I don't know whether this is for me already too late, and then what is too late? Because of course, what all comes into this whole game is women get pregnant later in their lives. They postpone it. Not everyone. You might already got kids early, and I have friends who got kids in their 20s or early 30s. They got pregnant easily. But I also know a lot of women who I actually want to have kids. They just kind of decided in the last years that, oh yeah, actually I want to become a mom. I want to lay aside my career. And I'm one of them. And I think I will make an episode, an extra episode just on that topic to really be very vulnerable and honest what a journey that's been for me. Because I think that is something really precious for many women to dive into this kind of topic with biological clock ticking. But I'm not taking this now into consideration for this podcast because, obviously that should be an episode for itself. But I'm a millennial. I was born in the 80s, and millennial women, especially the kind of first generation, grew up with technology, social media, but kind of later down the line. So we still are the only generation that grew up partially without technology and then coming with technology, depending on how old you are. But we were kind of handed the keys to career, like freedom to choose, freedom to do whatever we want, the self-expression. And, having kids at some point, but not too early, right? Because you should be educated, you should study, you should then build a career, you just should show that you're a woman who is capable. And now, you're carrying everything everyone said we should be able to do and to show. And today we're going to unpack this a bit more in depth. So why a lot of women I talk to, and it's not just clients, but with clients I know it really well because we get really, really, really honest. And I've seen it in so many that I'm like, I cannot unsee it. But why some women, you might be included or not, but I have definitely been one, that we feel like we are broken. And what a generational trap looks like, what emotional labor and mental load really, really mean, and also what is the impact on our health. And most importantly, what can we do about it? So we also can finally breathe and, reclaim a life that is more truly aligned to how we really want to live, without any shame or guilt or this unworthiness that's driving us to prove and please and do so many things all at once. So historically speaking, and you might have had conversation with your grannies who are still hopefully alive, or at least you got to know, you talked to your mom, or you read it in history books, you got that taught in school, or just picked it up in books or from social media that not too long ago women were literally oppressed. They had little choice. There were a lot of things that they couldn't do, such as voting. I think until the 70s in the US, women needed husbands to open credit cards. And so there was a lot of things women couldn't do, and there were a lot of jobs that they were also not able to do. And now we are basically, now on the other side of the spectrum, where we have all the opportunities. We can do everything. And I don't think that, please correct me if it's different for you, but I observe that women are not necessarily happier. I don't think that I'm happier. I mean, I am, to be honest with you, because I actually got out of this whole thing. But let's say 2 or 3 years ago, I wasn't much happier than my mom was, where she had obviously way more options and choices than my grandmother. But there was like, my mom was a housewife. She could take care of the house. And obviously that has also its shadow side, right? There's like, my mom missed out on a lot of things career related, or, having a job and, taking her mind off and getting distracted and just out of the house and away from the child care and nurturing kind of thing. But I feel like, we're different times. I think there was more time to slow down because, there wasn't much to do other than, coming home and then maybe watch TV. And now, I feel women have so many more choices. I have way more opportunities than my mom ever had. And the pressure is way higher. So, and then also, obviously, as I said before, the millennial trap, right? I mean, we were a generation that grew up with very early tech, social media exposure coming our way. And now this, 24/7 connectedness. And then there are these career expectations that we were put upon. Like, I know for women, like 20 years ago, it was really into you have to go and study, you have to have a career. Only then you are kind of a worthy woman, or a woman who is successful and can prove herself. But then there are also these household expectations, because at some point, we all get, move in together with our significant other, or marry, or get children. And then, then we have also this social media perfection, where we now lean into a world where we see highlight reels, where we see other women showing us how it's all done, and all done in beautiful clothes, and all those things. And that can be tricky, because the reality behind the scenes, even for those creators and influencers, is completely different. But we don't get to see that, because if you open TikTok, social media, you see a very beautiful woman smiling and often saying things that are very black and white, and actually there's a nuance missing. There's also this tread wife thing. I know this is a trend that's kind of maybe fading. It's not something very new, which for a long time I was like, what is tread wife? Until I realized it's traditional wives who are stay-at-home moms, or just stay-at-home women, and who, cook and bake, and maybe they have a homestead, and everything is just perfect. And you wonder, okay, I have a corporate job. I am not that satisfied and not so fulfilled. I have a lot of pressure. I have kids, or I want kids. There's so much going on. For women, I feel life is very, 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 very nuanced. There's so many things that a lot of men don't have to worry about. I mean, for me, talking about myself, for example, I mean, my husband too takes care of his body, right? He is also going to the gym. But on my end, I also take care of our apartment and clean it all up. And this is not about women do more than men. I take that piece out of the conversation here, because, come on, it so annoys me, this whole women against men, and men being the perpetrator and, being the vicious evils. It's not true, because I see a lot of men that also have invisible suffering. That is also something I will make a podcast about, because I talk a lot with men about this, and there are things that we women don't know. But obviously the focus is on us today, in the real question, whether we are broken, if there's something wrong with us. And not with you individually, but just systemically, and whether, I just want to bring up this conversation. And so, yeah, okay, so coming back, so it went a little bit on a tangent. I was like, okay, where was I? So, and social media shows us a lot of things that 15 years ago, or let's say maybe 10 years ago, I wasn't even aware of. Because all that I saw were my friends, or maybe whatever I saw in magazines or on TV, like, like those actresses or whatever, but they were so far away from a relatable life. But I had only friends to compare myself to. I don't know, how was it for you? Like, how was it 10, 15 years ago when there was no such big social media usage? Because 10, 15 years ago, Instagram was different, Facebook was different. I think our usage was also not what it's now. And when I talk to clients or when I talk to friends, there's a lot of comparison that we take from social media. And this is not only from influencers or from content creators, but also we know what Susie from high school or from grad school is now doing. We see acquaintances or people that we once were friends with, what they're doing and how they're traveling and showing this life, So there is a lot that we compare ourselves to. I mean, I do, and I did, because now I'm obviously so much more aware of this pattern and understand the trap and understand that I only can compare myself to my previous version, like yesterday or half a year ago. And that is my real measurement stick. But still, and at the same time, obviously, I don't want to paint this as something necessarily bad, because there's no such thing as black and white, okay? That is never my thinking, because black and white is always so much like, it just takes away the real deeper conversation and root cause. Because at the same time, there's also a lot of inspiration, right? So obviously, because I can see what other women are able to do and can feel inspired and do this my own way. Okay, coming back to our millennial trap. And I don't know if you are counting as a millennial, maybe you are older, maybe you're younger, but it's kind of similar anyway. And I just want to say that, coming back to the burnout. So Harvard Business Review did a study, and they said that around 60 to 70% of millennial women report a burnout versus millennial men of 51%. So there is definitely a higher percentage of women who feel burned out. And the underlying cause of this burnout is very often those anxieties that come up with, obviously a lot of emotional and mental load. And then, our wanting to prove that we are worthy, always being on, and then comparing ourselves constantly to other people. And then underlying is all this, I don't feel enough. And I have mentioned mental and emotional labor and mental load quite a bit. So I want to dive into this a little bit, just because, you might ask yourself, Martina, what are you talking? What is emotional labor? I mean, everyone can kind of understand what it means, but let's define this a little bit. The same with mental load, so that we're on the same page. So basically, I define emotional labor as this invisible work we women do, where we manage other people's feelings, needs, we juggle relationships and all these home logistics. Plus kids, minus kids. It doesn't matter if you have kids or not, but I do that already. So I already know there is way more emotional labor on my end than I think my husband has, without now drawing a comparison saying he does less, because I know he does a lot of things that I don't know, because he's booking, planning, he does all our finances, and he spends a lot of time doing everything so that we are well off, that we are having our credit cards paid off. He checks flights way long in advance so that we get the cheapest flights, that he can snag business class seats or premium seats with miles. So he does so many things that I have no clue about. So again, I just want to say that this is not comparing men versus women, because this is just outright stupid. But the mental load, on the other hand, is kind of like keeping the entire family and life running in our head. Like, when you have kids, I mean, I don't need to tell you because you know better than I do. But there is so much that, appointments, the things in school, and, in my mind, like on my end, it's my dogs going to all the vet appointments, making sure that they are taken care of. I'm walking them 3 times a day, feeding them. I cook also for them. So there is so much already, and I don't even have kids. And so it's like this kind of statistics that says that women in on average spend 3 hours extra per day on this kind of unpaid labor. And that is like, and this whole mental load is linked to chronic stress and anxiety. And I think chronic stress and anxiety is something I notice a lot of women have more and more. And a lot of those things are obviously something you can definitely ditch. You can ease your anxiety and you can get out of chronic stress, because often the whole mental load and emotional labor is, so what I always say is there's something underlying this. And this could be an extra podcast episode. But if I know someone is running on extra fumes, like doing everything, there's a belief underneath. There's something unconsciously going on, often from this, I'm not worthy, and I'm only worthy if I produce a result, or if I'm doing things for other people, or if I'm showing I'm a good girl, a good wife, right? And nothing against like being a good wife. I want to be an excellent wife, by the way, but this is not me like pouring from an empty cup. So everything that I'm telling here, I could do a whole coaching session and tell you everything about it, because that's what I help women in my coaching practice with. But that would just be too much for this episode. I just want to keep it a little bit more general, just to get us into this topic. And then I can obviously like follow up with more in-depth angles on that topic. So of course, we're doing planning. We are planning more. We have to remember more, and we also, and I noticed that, worry more, even when we are about to sleep or when we should fall asleep. And yeah, women need more rest because our brains are doing multi-layering processing. So alone that means we need more sleep, but look into your own life. How much sleep do you get versus your significant other? And again, this is not men against women or anything around this, but I know that when my dogs in the night need to go potty, or if they get sick, I am the one getting up. And while my husband would do that, he would never be like, oh no, I don't want to do that. He would do it. But you know what? When he takes my dogs out or takes care of one of them, I start to worry. I'm like, okay, what's going on? How is he feeling, my dogs? Like, or how is she feeling? Because I have a girl and a dog and a boy. So I couldn't be in bed anyway, because I want to just kind of like, step in. Not because my husband is incompetent, not at all, but like I couldn't just rest in bed knowing one of my dogs isn't doing well. You know what I mean? It's the same like, if your daughter or your son is not doing well, would you just stay in bed and not give a crap because your husband is taken care of? And it's not about like, when sometimes the kids are crying and, they just need maybe, some soothing for a few minutes, or maybe being brought into bed. This is not what I'm talking about. It's just more like you have to get up. Something is going on, right? So yeah, I know you know what I mean. And then, that leads me to this modern pressure. There is career. And while not everyone is pursuing a career, like climbing the ladder, maybe maybe you've done it, you used to do it, or you never wanted to, but I'm pretty sure that you're contributing to the household budget and that you have a part-time job or a full-time job, or you are applying for, maybe you're off a job right now, but I don't know anyone in my clients, friends, family circle who is not working. I don't know any woman who isn't working. And it doesn't matter if it's 2 hours a week or 60 hours a week. I don't know anyone who is not working. So the modern pressure is like, as we have more career opportunities and there's a lot of equality, we carry a lot of more responsibility than men, because obviously when the job finishes, our day is not finished. There's the home and the family. There is the expectation to maintain a perfect environment, right? To clean up, to all those things. And not everyone can like afford a sitter for the kids or for the pets, or to, have someone home for cleaning. If you do, amazing, that helps. But, not everyone has someone coming every day. So we still have to do all the cleaning. And maybe your husband is doing this. But in my case, he isn't. And we have clearly decided that I just do more because I have, let's say, he's going to the hospital, he has to commute, so I'm home, so naturally I do more. And that is my choice. This is also what I want, because I feel like that is more equal. In a way, and I have to be careful, because obviously I know when my kind of balance, is a little off, when I feel like, okay, this is way too much, especially when a lot of things are going on. I just had 2 sick dogs. Both dogs both became sick. And then it's getting often too much with everything else I juggle. And then I ask my husband to help and step in, and he does. So we also have to let go of control or doing it all, and also ask. So, okay. So, yeah. There is a lot of, like, as I said in the beginning, we have a social life, we have friends, we have family. We want to take care of ourselves. We want to have personal growth. We want to like evolve. We might just want to, do a certificate or change jobs or change roles. So there's so much. And there's this tension between we want all the freedom and have all the choices, but then we are burdened by the cost of it all. Because every freedom, and then we have to define what freedom is, but let's keep it general. All the freedom that we want and crave, and all the choices we have, plus opportunities, they also come with a burden, with a cost. Nothing is for free. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And when I said before, why we women feel broken or feel like there's something off. And of course, there's so much more to it. There's things like in medicine, that women's health is still more or less in its infant shoes. It gets better and better, but a lot of pills, diets, or regimen for getting healthy or for discovering diseases, it's all more men related to their body than women in our reproductive issues and health. There's so much to this topic, but I have to exclude this because otherwise we'll talk for 3 hours plus. So coming back to when I say why we feel broken, is I feel that we have, to a big extent, an internalized unworthiness running, where with all the opportunities and everything we see around us on social media, with friends, where we constantly want to prove that we are of value. You don't know how many women I helped and still help getting out of this. Only if I do provide, if I create results, if I bring home the money, only then I'm good enough. And then also it's fleeting, good enough until the next thing and until the next, right? And of course, there's also this generational narrative with opportunities, that equals responsibilities and equals also guilt. Because I've just talked about that with one of my clients who had, listen to this, unconsciously put on the pressure of like my mom, my granny, and all the other women before me didn't have the choices, and now I have all the choices, and now I want to be successful. I want to do it all. That was just a few days ago, where I helped her release that internal unconscious belief, and this motivating, or this very much belief, but like more unconscious drive was in the driver's seat, to such an extent that she is burnt out, that she feels there's friction in her life and there's so much pressure and she doesn't know where it comes from. So you don't know how many women that have. Yeah. And then obviously we lay in bed, brain is constantly racing, and you ask yourself, did I do enough today? Oh, tomorrow I have to do this. Oh, and this is coming and that is coming. That's sometimes not easy to be in a women's brain, because obviously we are constantly in this, I don't know, fight, flight, and freeze, where we are in survival of like, because in the end of the day, what happens is you judge yourself. You see other people doing it all, or having it all, or having things that you want to have and you don't have. So you look at your reality and feel like, well, I'm not there yet, but we started out quite the same. And then you start judging. And every time you judge yourself, and often you don't judge yourself just like, oh, she's there, I'm not. I should do more. It's way more vicious. It's like, I'm lazy. Of course, I'm too dumb for this. Or I'm like, I'm behind, I'm old, I'm not looking good enough. Whatever it is, there is so much. And every time you judge yourself, you put yourself into a survival mode. Be it freeze, flight, or fight. It doesn't matter. And that is what also breaks us. There's so much to it. I should do a podcast about it. And I have been there. Everything I have achieved, including my business, and I stopped doing this 2 years ago. All my careers, all my master titles, my MBA title, my business was built on this whole pressure. I need to prove I am successful, because only then I'm worthy. I wanted my husband to be proud of me, my parents to be proud of me, the whole world to look at me and say like, wow, she's so amazing. Until one day I was like, that's enough. I don't want this anymore. It's exhausting me, and I don't even have kids. So I turned everything around. It took me time, and maybe I also should do a whole podcast about that to go more into depth with this. But I just didn't want to do this anymore. And also, to a fair point, not every woman has that experience or feels the same pressure. It's not for everyone. I don't want to speak on behalf of all the women out there. Maybe some of the things that I mentioned today was relatable. Maybe some of the things you just don't know, because it's not something that you do or that you think. Maybe you have the complete opposite opinion. You think like, well, women, have it better than ever. I'm a little bit more, even though I'm a very optimistic person, I'm a little bit more pessimistic here, because I think, again, the pendulum swung too much on the other side, from no choice to all the choices. And now we are dealing with all the effects. And I don't think that dealing now with all the effects that we are better off. We are to some extent. But I also see health issues, reproductive issues, women burning out, women this, women that. I mean, cancer rates, everything is rising. And it's not just because of the bad food, especially in America. That is also one of the things. But, there's just so much in our brains, right? It's like crazy. So, yeah, and then obviously there are intersectional factors such as class, culture, and the support system, because there are women who have a lot of support system, women that have no support system, and I know there are differences with races and cultures. So obviously this is not something, as I said before, I'm speaking on behalf of all the women. And some women thriving this chaos, but I also know at a personal cost. Yeah, and then the question is, what can be done? Right? So, what can be done is speaking to someone, recognizing the invisible work you carry, naming it, and validating yourself for all the things that you achieve. Because most of the time, we women, we don't rave about what we do. We feel like, yeah, but there's nothing. Everyone does it. Or, doing cooking and cleaning is nothing. But it's a lot. It's amazing. It's something like, it's like, especially if you are a mom, kudos to you. You are a superhero in my mind. And then there's also like this delegating and asking for help, support without shame. Because often we don't delegate. We want to have things in control. We don't want to have our husbands or children or moms doing things because it's like, no, I should be able to do it. But no, we should actually have a village around us. And then something that really helped me was reframing some of the choices. Discerning what I truly want for me versus what society expected or what I thought people expected of me. And then really following more what I wanted. And I wanted a more peaceful life. I wanted a life without drama. I wanted to be with people that I truly like and love versus people that, yeah, cool to be around with, but actually I don't want them in my life for whatever reason. And then also like, no, I don't have to have a career. I built one and I'm done. I just wanna, I wanna help my clients. I don't wanna build my business to a 7, 8, 9-figure business. I wanted this 2 years ago. And I went down the complete rabbit hole. And I should talk about that in an episode. I went wrong so badly. I should really do one. I should fill you in with all these things and should really get very vulnerable with you so that you know where I'm actually coming from and how my life is today. But really understanding what do I want. And you know what? My true wants, needs, and desires were so simple. I wanted a beautiful life with my husband. I didn't want this big career. I didn't want this 8, 9-figure business. I just want serve a handful of clients. Being happy with the 3 or 4 or 5 clients I have versus I need to have 20 clients and make shitloads of money. No, I don't want to make shitloads of money. I want to live comfortably. And there is a certain amount that me and my husband have to make to have this comfortable life. And we have it. And this is good. And I still have time for myself in the morning, in the evening. So, yeah. So, think about because to be honest with you, I never was really honest with myself. And of course, in the 20s and 30s, we have all these naive things of like, I want to do this, I want to have that. And then when you get older, your values are changing and you want things differently and you want it in another form. And that also changes with age. But still, reframing the choices and like, what is it what I really want? If no one was listening or looking at me versus what I thought people wanted me. Or, proving myself. Oh my God, proving myself. That was such a hard time when I was still in that mental frame. And then, incorporating small steps, micro rests, pauses before saying yes to things. Taking off things from your agenda that are not a priority. And then kind of like forgetting about all these checklists and have to-dos. Because to be honest with you, your to-do list is your inner critic. So I have no to-do lists anymore because I know my inner critic puts 10 things on my to-do list and then I'm stressed out because I'm not fulfilling all of them. Because it's impossible to do that in a week, in a day, in an hour. And shifting the narrative. Freedom without guilt. And being like putting action towards things that are more aligned with you versus an unaligned life. For me, for example, I'm not going out there and promote my business. Most of my new clients and clients that are coming in are from either past clients or people I know, coworkers, acquaintances, friends who need support with everything we discussed today, like getting out of this mental, emotional labor and load and stress, anxiety, and coming back to what is it what I really want, and then facing the inner critic. And for me, this is now like, I don't need this big client list. I just want to have this freedom of making a bit of money in my business, having a corporate job that helps me with structure and paying most of our bills, and that is it. That is my freedom. And I'm not feeling guilty or shameful or broken. So, are we women broken? Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe we are just overstretched, overasked, overworked, and under-supported. You might be like myself, the first generation with all the endless choices. The first generation to try to do it all. And Our brains, hearts, and bodies are saying, slow down, no more. Alrighty, so if you're listening and feeling this too, all the racing thoughts at night or during the day, and you feel like there's a slight burnout constantly in the back of your head, you feel like guilty a lot of times. You feel ashamed or shame because you have done things or haven't done things. I want you to know you are never broken. There is nothing wrong with you. What you feel, most of the women, including myself, feel too. Because often what I feel in my coaching practice is we are not as honest with each other as we should be. We don't have the conversations that we should have. So we kind of suffer silently and think that we are the only ones. And everyone else has it figured out. And as I'm working with clients, I can clearly see, and that was also part of my healing process, because I saw myself in them. I'm like, wow, they have that too. And then I knew I wasn't the only one. And that alone helps. And then obviously helping my clients, telling them, hey, no, you know what? I've been there. Other clients have been there. You're not the only one. And that alone, that frees up so much in our heads. You are navigating a pressure cooker of expectations that no one in this world taught you how to manage. No one taught you how to navigate, ease the inside pressure cooker. So, takeaways from this episode. Notice if you have mental load and name it. Give yourself all the permission to rest, say no, and delegate. And I want you to sit down and recognize your daily achievements, not just all the to-dos and obligations that you have and responsibilities. Also your everyday invisible achievements, because you are one of the greatest achievers that has ever been born. And I don't say that to kiss your ass. I'm saying that because I know it. I've never met a woman, wherever I met them, that wasn't a real hero. Okay, so we're not broken then, right? We are evolving. We are dealing with how fast the world is changing, the fast pace of everything, because I think not only technology, but also I feel like the whole structure and system, everything is changing. And often also to the better. This is not me saying, oh, everything is just so fucked up and oppressive in the end of the day, because there is a lot of things that are going wrong. Structurally speaking, a lot of things are going wrong, and a lot of women talk about the patriarchy. But I don't like that. I look for solutions. And I want to leave you with this and saying that, you know what? You are evolving. You're evolving. You're navigating a lot of the things that it's not our choosing, a lot of the things we can take agency. And while we are evolving takes courage, care, and a lot of honest reflection. Alrighty, loves, that's it for today's episode. I know we have unpacked a lot. The choices, the burnout, the guilt, the pressure to do it all, and the way you have been set up to prove yourself nonstop. And I really hope some of this, what I mentioned today, hits home, made you pause, or at least made you feel a little less alone in the midst of all this chaos and moment that we are in today's world. And if this episode resonated with you, don't keep this to yourself. Send it to a friend who needs to hear it maybe too, or share that conversation, or spark some reflection in your friends, in your circle of friends, or, just laugh together at how wild everything can be and is. Thank you for carving out the time to sit with me today, for being honest with yourself, for being you, and for showing up for your own growth. And I will see you next time. And until then, keep doing you, boo. Bye.